Hello and welcome to Quilting with Lori. My name is Lori Dickman, and today we're going to be working on another beautiful spring block. I live here in Rockford, Illinois, and it has been snowy and cold and freezing for the last couple of months, and I am ready for spring. So I'm anxious to work on the next two blocks in my Spring is in the Air Block of the Month series. So these are some of the blocks we have done. Of course, first the big medallion center, and I think I am going to add a butterfly or something here on this fence. I haven't done that yet, but this is the medallion center of the quilt. These were the two blocks we did last month, and this is the beautiful post with the birdhouse there. And then, of course, these really whimsical birds. We've created those. I think those were the first or the second series of blocks. And then, of course, we have these unusual kind of log cabin birdhouse. And here's another one that has some strips and so forth. It was a really fun one to make. Now, today, we are going to work on two additional blocks. And this is the carrot block and the sun block. So here is a quick picture of what the quilt will look like when it's finished. And this is one of the blocks we're going to be doing today here, and the sun block. So this is a carrot birdhouse. I'm going to be teaching you some curved sewing here today. It's really easy and really fun, and I think this is something that we should all learn. And it's a very simple block, so we'll be working on that one second. First, we're going to work on this applique block. This block of the month pattern is available out on my website, and the entire course with all of the videos and the patterns and templates for the entire thing is only $25, and it's going to stay on my website permanently. It will be on my YouTube channel permanently, so you can join this class at any time, and I'll have a description box below if you'd like to get started on this one. It's a real fun quilt to put together, and we should have it done by April so we can get it quilted and ready to hang for the springtime and summertime season. Now, I'm going to pull out here in front of me some of the fabrics that I'm needing for the carrot birdhouse block. I've got my 10-inch light background fabric, and I have fused it with a very lightweight, a super lightweight, a featherweight interfacing, which just gives it some stability. This is a very light batik, and as I mentioned earlier when we were doing some applique blocks, sometimes when you are appliquing using a very light fabric for your background, it kind of gets sucked down into the machine as the needle is going through it. So if you just put a very lightweight interfacing on the back, that will help to give this fabric some stability, and you won't have those issues. So I have done that. It's just a Pellon. I'll get a link below what that Pellon interfacing is that I used for you. And here's some little pieces of fabric that I'm needing. I need some browns, some pinks, a blue for the window, an orange for the carrot, and green for the grasses. And then, of course, for those of you who have already registered, and for those of you who are my members, my Block of the Month members on my YouTube membership channel, you will get this pattern and its templates via email before this video comes out. So we're going to work on this carrot block, and the templates that you're going to receive are right here. The templates do show that 1/4-inch seam allowance if you like to needle turn applique. I am not needle turn appliquing any of this during this class. I am simply doing the paper-backed fusible. Therefore, all we have to do is take our paper-backed fusible and place it over the top of all of the different elements on here and trace on the dark lines. And so I've traced all of my green elements together. There's the grass and the top of the carrot. I've traced my brown elements together, my yellow and pink elements together. So they're all traced onto the paperback fusible on the paper side. And then my carrot is the second one over here. And so all of my elements have been traced. Now I'm going to loosely, with a paper scissors, cut around those like color elements. So all of these are going to be put on green fabric. So I've loosely cut them out, and I will press that to the wrong side of the green fabric. I'll do the same with all of the rest of these. I have all of the elements obviously traced on the paperback fuse, and then I have fused those elements onto the correct color fabric, and I've fused them all to the wrong side. For most of these batiks, it doesn't really matter which side because there's really not a right or a wrong side to a batik fabric. So I've got everything here, my grasses, my carrot, my door and the window bars and the doorknob, the curtains. These are the little flower petals that will go inside these flowers, and this will be the window that will go in the house, the carrot house here. So now that I've pressed it all, it is fused and it's cool, I will literally just take my cutting scissors here and cut out on that drawn line. Get every element cut out, and then I'll remove the paper backing, and we'll start laying each piece on the black. All right, I have all of the elements fused and cut out on the drawn dark lines, and I've removed the paper. All of the paper has been removed, and so I did fold the block in half horizontally and vertically to find the center location. I started by placing my green carrot top here and wanted to make sure that I've left enough room up there for the 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I think I'm going to move things down a little bit. You'll probably want to rearrange things as you're laying this out, and then don't press anything until you're absolutely happy with the arrangement. Another thing, you don't have to follow the same color fabrics that I have used. You might want to use other fabrics in your from your stash. This is a great quilt to use fabrics from your stash. And so I'm just laying all of the parts and pieces down here now. I will do this again right at the iron. I placed it on here so I can easily move it over to the iron. But put your flowers on there. I'm going to put my little flower centers on each of these. I've got my curtains here that I'm putting on the window. And then from the outside looking in, you'll see the beams on the window itself. So that will go across there. Probably need to use a little tweezers to get everything on there properly, but I've also got my doorknob there, and I did use a brown for the slab on the bottom there. You might want to use gold, whatever you choose. Use any colors that you want. Isn't this adorable? I can't wait to get this appliqued. Now, I'm going to go set up my machine with applique thread. I'm going to use threads that match each of these colors, and I am simply going to do an applique stitch that is a straight edge stitch all the way around every element. There's just so many tiny parts and pieces here, so I am simply going to do a straight stitch on the very edge of each element. Once you're completely happy with the placement of everything, making sure that you have enough room for your seam allowances all the way around, then and only then press everything to secure it. When I applique on my machine, the bobbin thread will use a bobbin. It's actually a bobbin thread. You can get it at Coats & Clark. You can get this thread just about anywhere. It is a size 70 thread, so that means it's a little bit lighter weight, and it works well for appliquing. So that goes in the bobbin. And you can also get it in dark so that you can work it with your darker threads. I'm just going to use this light. I think it will be just fine. I have brown thread that I'll use. I have green that I will use here, and pink, orange, blue, and yellow. So I have every color that I need. I'm going to go ahead and do straight line edge stitching all the way around the block, and I'll bring it back and show it to you. Is this the cutest block or what? I have the block completely appliqued. I've gone around each of the elements with the matching thread. I started with yellow, did all the tiny yellow ones first, then I did the tiny pink, then I did the tiny brown, then I did the green, and then I did the orange last. So I made sure all the smaller elements stayed secured on there first. And it took me maybe 35 minutes to completely applique this block. Every seam is just a straight edge stitch close to the edge of each of the elements. And you can do like a cross stitch across that doorknob there just to kind of keep that secure on there. So this one is ready. Now let's head over here and start working on our sun block. Now let's see what we need for our second block, which is the sun block. And we definitely need some plastic film. I have a couple of different kinds of plastic film. I have some 8.5 by 11 sheets that are just this clear, firm plastic film that you can trace templates onto. And you can get this at Hobby Lobby. You can get this online. And then I also have this other film here, which is thinner, but is wider for one of the elements. For the sun element itself here, you're going to need a longer, wider sheet. And you could also get this at Hobby Lobby. They have the bigger sheets there as well. So, but you will definitely need the plastic template film for this. You'll get the template pieces that you need for the sunflower block, or the sun block, excuse me. And I have traced all of these elements onto my plastic template film. So I have everything that I need. I recommend using this wax type pen. It is template marking pencil, and it writes on plastic, and it doesn't rub off on your hand, and it doesn't rub off on your fabric. So I love this thing for working with templates like this. So these are all ready to go. Now we are going to trace them onto the appropriate color fabric. Here are my elements that I have traced onto the appropriate color fabric, and I've cut them out. I did use some sticky notes to put on some of these so that I don't get them mixed up, because they are very similar to the opposing piece. So I have them all ready to go. I've got 2 C's, 1 E, 1 A, 1 F. Those are yellow, and the rest and mine are light blue. And you don't have to follow my color scheme. You can have fun with yours. Make it a really bright, cheerful sun with all different colors if you choose. Then I have 2 D's, 1 B, and 1 G. Now let's sew it together. The first thing we're going to do is lay out this center section of the black, and that is this piece right here. And what I had done on my key code, I penciled in abbreviations for the colors. So this is my background. B is background, and then LG is the light gold, and then G is the gold that I'm going to use for this part of the sun. So I've got them all identified here. I've laid them out. B and G are the outside edges, and there's a straight edge on G, and there's a straight edge on B. Make sure those straight edges are on the corners of the black here on the outside of the black. And then everything else in here is on the bias. And we are simply going to take these pieces and flip them right sides together, pin and sew 1/4 inch. And we're just going to keep doing that all the way around, and we'll have this section done. Let me take these over and I'll just stitch them. I'll keep bringing them back and you can see what I've done. I am going to press my seam allowances open. All right, so I have B, and let's see, this next one here is C, a blue B and a gold C. Now I'm going to add the D, and I'm simply going to flip it over, lay it on there, and I will stitch 1/4 inch seam allowance. And they have the little notches which allow you to know exactly where to start and stop on those notches. So I'm going to sew it. I'll bring it right back. So far I have this set done. I've pressed my seams open, and I've just finger pressed so far. That's all I've done. And when you follow those notches as you're doing your seam allowances, that will allow you to have that 1/4 inch seam allowance up here at the point. You really need that. Otherwise you'll lose your points, and you don't want to lose your points. So the next thing we're going to do is add E, the gold E, to this D, flip it over, start sewing from that notch over here to this one. That's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to continue doing this all the way around. I'll bring it back with my seams pressed, and you can see what it looks like. I have finished this section of this unit, and I've pressed it all open. All the seam allowances are pressed open. You've got to make sure you've still got your 1/4 inch seam allowances up here so you don't lose your beautiful gold points when we attach it to this piece. First, we're going to attach the gold part of the sun to this part of the unit. And the way I like to do that is simply fold it in half and put a crease mark there. I'm going to fold this in half and put a crease mark there. And then let's open this up, right sides together. Let me get some pins here. This is a pin that will secure the very center. Now it looks kind of funny, as you can see, but that goes in the center. This flat edge here needs to match up with that flat edge there. So we are going to flip it around, and we're going to take a pin and pin it, just puncture a lot of holes in there, just so that these flat edges remain perpendicular here. And this is all kind of loose and open in there. Don't worry about that right now. We're going to do the same thing on this side. This flat edge here needs to match up with this flat edge there. We're going to flip it around, line it up, take a pin and secure it really well so that it's secure. So now what we have is this funky looking thing here. And that is okay. This is good. Now we're going to go ahead and put a pin in the center here, and in the center here. And we're going to take it to our machine. I like to put the part of the unit that has the excess fabric, which is this bigger part, on the bottom where the feed dogs are, so that it will help feed things in nicely. And I will start sewing. I'll grab this, and once I've grabbed onto the unit, then I'll remove the pin and sew 1/4 inch, and just keep moving things underneath as I'm working around the unit. Continue at 1/4 inch, removing pins, going under and kind of moving my unit back and forth to make sure I don't sew any curves or creases in there. I don't want any creases. And just remove the pen right before I get to it. You could certainly put in more pens if you want. I'm not going to. So I'm going to take this to my machine and I'm going to start sewing it. I've begun stitching here. I have a leader in there just to sew off of that piece of fabric onto this fabric. And I'm sewing at 1/4 of an inch here. And I just keep going under and making sure that I don't have any creases. I keep feeling and making sure that everything feels flat, that I'm not sewing in any curves or creases. And as I get to pins, I am going to pull them apart, or take them out, excuse me. Trying to see around my camera here. Hopefully I am sewing this properly for you. I want to make sure you can see what I'm doing, but I can't necessarily see what I'm doing. You want to make sure that this end right here, that these two, the light background and the yellow, are perpendicular, that there's nothing showing through. I think I might have a crease in there. I think I got it. All right, let's see how I did. All right, I still have my leader there. Let me get that cut away. And how did I do? Not bad. Some of this is a little creased in here, but I should be able to press that out. So let me go press and see if I'm happy. If not, I can fix some things. I've finished the block and I've pressed it. I've pressed my seams toward this gold section here, and it's going to work out well. I'm going to square everything up once I get this section sewn on. So now let's go ahead and do this section. It's going to be done the same way as this. Again, we'll fold this in half, and the point itself is our center point for this part of the unit. And I have folded this, and I've pressed a creased, and now I'm going to pin this just like I did the other one. So let's grab some of these pins here. And you can use more pins than I do, but I don't use that many. I'm going to make sure that, again, this flat edge here matches up to this flat edge there. And I'm going to pin it really well so that nothing goes wonky here. I want that to stay straight there. And then we'll put this like this. I'll use a few more pins along here since it is a little bit longer. Do the same over here. This flat edge here needs to line up with that flat edge there. And here we go. And again, because the underside has more fabric than the top, I'm going to make sure that the underside is up against the feed dogs, which will help to feed things in evenly. And I'm going to go ahead and sew a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance following the same procedure that I did for this section. And I'll stitch that and I'll bring it back so you can take a peek at it. My sunblock is finished. My carrot birdhouse is finished. You'll need to square them up to 10 inches. This has been a fun class. We're learning some paper-backed applique techniques. We're learning how to sew curved seams. There's so many different things that we have done in this class. I hope you've enjoyed it. So far, we've finished everything except for these 2 blocks here next. Well, 3 blocks, actually. We have this beautiful tulip, which consists of 2 blocks, as well as this bird block here on a limb. So we'll create all 3 of those next month. Along with the sashing, we'll do the sashing as well and get the center of this entire quilt put together. And then the last month, we'll go ahead, and that'll be March. We'll do the borders, and then you can get it up on your quilt frame and have it quilt by April, May. Thanks so much for joining me today. All of your comments really do help the algorithm for my YouTube channel, and I thank you so much for commenting, for liking, and also for subscribing if you haven't already subscribed. Subscribing to my channel is free. It just allows you to know when I've posted new videos. They'll show up in your feed. So I hope you'll subscribe. And thank you so much. We will see you next week, and I've got lots of new scrappy things on the horizon here. So stay tuned for some more scrappy blocks and a lot of fun as we're quilting in our quilt studios. Until next week, happy quilting.